Hey everyone, it's Aaron with Hail Varsity. I'm joined by Greg, recruiting extraordinaire for Hail Varsity, and it is time for another recruiting question of the week. This week's question comes from Foss on Twitter, Foss07 _07.
Shouts to Tyler.
He said, the first few years of a coach's tenure, they sell a vision to recruits, and that ultimately gets some to buy in. If in year 4, what type of challenges are there if the results are limited? How likely are we to see game changers in classes going forward if Nebraska continues to struggle? That's a really great question.
Yes,
right?
It really is a good question. Great job, Tyler. I think that is the big challenge when you start to move through a coaching tenure, because in the beginning, and this was even a more unique situation than most with a new coaching staff, right, is that you had the excitement of having a new coach coming in, but if you think back to, 3-ish years ago, you also had Scott Frost coming off of a Coach of the Year situation. He came off of the undefeated season. It was a very public undefeated season. Right? Everybody was kind of watching that. So he had great name recognition. So it was really easy to sell to people, or easier, I should say. It wasn't really easier to sell to people, recruits, that, hey, you should come be a part of this at Nebraska. I'm going back to my alma mater. Fast forward to now, when the results have not been where anybody wanted them to be, you have to continue to try and cast that vision while also mixing in, like, game film from things that have happened with the team, while not putting your team down. I'm trying to say it's a really tricky spot to be in for a coaching staff to say, hey, wide receiver X, we need you to come in and make that play that guy didn't make, while also still being a nice guy, like, about your current team. Like, it becomes a really tricky proposition to do.
Yeah, and it is a tough. This is what makes that question so good, because now I think at some point you hope to move beyond selling a vision and move into selling the product that people are seeing.
Yes. Because
at some point, you hope, or at least the hope is that what is happening on the field, what is happening in games, is no longer this is what we want. It's right. This is what's happening. This is how you fit. They're still selling that vision at this point. There are some spaces, some points that they can make where they're like, well, look at this moment. This is where you could make that similar kind of impact. But at the same time, if you're a certain player, you might be going, I haven't seen it yet. I'm not seeing it in a game, so how do I know 4 years in?
Get me there.
Right.
And I actually have a good example of that, as you were saying, that it came to mind. When I talked to Victor Jones Jr., Nebraska's wide receiver commit out of Florida after the Fordham game, he told me that he definitely watched Samori Toure during that game because that's who the coaches say that he could be like in this offense. So for what you were saying, if you have an example of a guy that's either out there and doing it, performing at a high level, or has already come through the program and has done it, it's even better probably. So you have multiple examples. That really helps. Guys, recruits really, really kind of latch on to that. You can give them tangible people that they can look at and say, hey, that person has done it, I can do it too.
Well, we hear it all the time when we talk to players. Who inspires you? Who are you wanting to emulate your game after? We're just getting, I'm now just like, it's funny. It's like without fail, especially in this video, we're just getting like practice.
Is that?
It's for the game on Saturday. Well, at this point it will have been passed, but we're in the TV magic. Anyway, but we do hear from recruits all the time who say, like, this player inspires me. This is who I want to play like. This is who I want to be when I step onto the field. And so when you have that on the field, that you can then show them, we've got that player. We have the Samori Toure. We have the Marquise Step. We have the person, and we can show you how we're using them in that moment. It goes a long way. And so I think that is where success really needs to come for Nebraska. Otherwise, recruits are going to start saying, I'm not sure if I'm willing to bet on the vision.
Right, because there's two different ways to get there, too, as well. You can get there with the individual players and show them, hey, this is who we can develop you to be like, so that you can ultimately then go on to the NFL if that was happening on a more regular basis. That's one way. And then the other way, obviously, is what we started off with, is the wins, right?
Yep.
It's a whole different thing to be able to say, well, while you maybe are waiting your turn here, we're going to be winning 9 games, throw out a random number, until we get you ready to play. So there's a lot that goes into being able to kind of sell that overall vision. Obviously, Nebraska needs a little bit more to sell, but they're hoping to get that turned around.
Well, at this point, we will have had a second game under our belt now. We are filming this before we know the outcome and the result of that. So, depending on that outcome of that Buffalo game, it will either help or hurt recruiting, and Greg will be keeping an eye on it all because he will dive further into this topic in the recruiting notebook tonight, 6 p.m. Central at hailvarsity.com. We always have the recruiting notebook Sunday through Thursday, 6 p.m. at hailvarsity.com. So especially as we're kind of diving further into what these games mean, what the outcomes mean, Greg will have plenty of that and more, especially as he talks to recruits and what they take away from it. So no better time than now to go subscribe to hailvarsity.com. Go bookmark the recruiting notebook. Greg, we appreciate your knowledge, your expertise. We'll be back next Monday with another recruiting question of the week. So if you have one, leave it in the comments here. You can tweet it at Hail Varsity, at Greg Smith HV. We will talk to you soon.